Hi friends, welcome back. I'm Elaine and I'm living with autoimmune disease, and I promise that the title of this video is not clickbait. The story I'm about to tell you sounds unbelievable, but it's true, and it's my story, and I want to share it with you. Perhaps you clicked on this video because you too have a small intestine that is dead. Maybe you feel like you're starving to death, or maybe you literally are starving to death. My mom keeps Christmas albums of Christmases past. And every year when I look through those picture albums, I come across this picture. And it reminds me of my story and of the year that I almost died. In November of 1997, I was 20 years old. I was a sophomore in junior college, and I woke up sick in the middle of the night. And sick, I mean I had a stomach ache. I believed I had the stomach flu, but it was just intense pain at that moment. My parents asked me what was going on. I lived with them at the time, and I told them I had the stomach flu. The problem is the stomach flu lasted and lasted and lasted and got worse and got worse and got worse. Every time I ate food, I had excruciating pain. And after a month of enduring excruciating pain after I was eating, I was referred to a gastroenterologist who decided that I had pancreatitis. And the reason he decided I had pancreatitis was because my pancreas enzymes in my blood were showing off. And when they ran a ultrasound of my abdominal cavity, my pancreas was showing inflamed. That's the first time that I learned that a relationship with a doctor isn't always the best relationship. I encountered a doctor who told my parents that I must have been drinking because that's the only way you could get pancreatitis. I must be lying to my parents when I said I hadn't been drinking. I was giving pancreas enzymes and pain medicine that I was supposed to take. At this time, I started also experiencing diarrhea and just a whole feeling of not feeling well. Every time I ate, I would have pain. I would wake up in the middle of the night with pain, having to go to the bathroom. And then I started to drop weight, a lot of weight. Now, I have never been a skinny person. I started to lose rapid amounts of weight. When I started this journey, I was probably nearly 200 pounds. I was about a size 16. I went from that gastroenterologist who diagnosed me with pancreatitis to another gastroenterologist because the first one didn't know what was going on and believed that he had reached the capacity of what he knew to treat me. The next gastroenterologist ran a whole lot more tests, and at this point my blood started to show signs of having a problem. And again, I'm losing rapid amount of weight. At this point, I decided I no longer want to eat. Anorexic due to the fact that I was in such excruciating pain and just so sick from just trying to thrive and eat that I didn't want to do it anymore. Different from anorexia nervosa. My mom worked so hard to try to find something that I could eat that wouldn't give me pain and would stay in. I mean, everything I eat at this point just keeps going through me, We settled on steamed rice, just steamed white rice with nothing on it, and French bread. That's what I could eat. That's what would maybe not cause a lot of pain and would stay in to the point that I would try to get some nutrients from food. And as I'm losing this rapid amount of weight, my muscles are wasting as well. So walking and functioning starts to be a real problem. I should backtrack a little and say this is a little removed from that November when I woke up and thought I was sick. I had to take an incomplete in my classes in college. I had to take the next semester off, and no medical doctor could help me or tell me what was going on. My parents fought so hard. My mom took me to every gastroenterologist pretty much in our plan. I had test after test. Upper GI, endoscopies, signoscopies, barium test, small intestine follow-throughs, just every GI test you could think of, I endured. And the results kept coming back that something was wrong. My small intestine worked too quickly. Things went right through it. They could see it on the scans. My blood work started to show problems. Somebody ran a CRP in my blood and it was elevated. My pancreas enzymes returned to normal, so that wasn't the problem. I went to an endocrinologist, I went to a gynecologist, I went to everyone I could think of. I had a primary care doctor who wasn't gonna give up. My parents endured other people in our circle saying that I must have anorexia nervosa, that my weight loss must be psychological. And the truth is, my parents were living the hell that I was living each night with me. They knew that I was sick every night. They were up when I was up. And there was one night I was certain I was dying. I had had a barium test a couple days before. The doctor wanted to have a signoscopy a couple days later, which involved the clean-out process. My GI tract was just barely working. It didn't function at all, and now we're trying to overtax it to try to figure out what's going on. As I did the clean-out process, my body couldn't handle it. I still had barium in my system from 2 days before, and I laid in bed shivering, so weak, vomiting, and in and out of consciousness that I didn't think I was gonna make it. And I faintly could hear my mom on the phone with the doctor in the after hours emergency. And I was told that I just needed to come in that morning. Of course, that test didn't show anything substantial. And I had a primary care doctor who was not gonna give up. In the Bay Area where I lived, which is the San Francisco Bay Area in California, there are 2 teaching hospitals that you go to if nobody knows what's wrong with you. One is Stanford and the other is UCSF. UCSF pretty much takes in patients who are in a dire situation. You have to be referred in by somebody. My doctor sent over the referral to UCSF. All my tests went over there. And we got a call from the chief of the gastrointestinal department saying that he would agree to see me. That felt so hopeful because we knew that UCSF was our last chance. My mom gathered all my records. She kept these binders of everything because, mind you, at this point, I am not a functioning person. I have no muscle mass. I'm barely able to walk. I have no energy. And when I said I started this journey about 200 pounds in a size 16, I reached 120 pounds and I was a size 2 within a matter of months. I started off an early morning into San Francisco for the appointment that hopefully was going to change my life. We met with the doctor. It was an interesting experience. I was very naive at this point. I was a kid. I was 20 years old. I had never lived outside of my parents' house. The doctor came in with a bunch of fellows and medical students and we went over everything. He truly believed that my small intestine was dead. And it's the part of the small intestine they can't get to. When they do an endoscopy and they do a colonoscopy, there's one part of your small intestine they can't get to. They can't see it. And now this is 1997, so there's not medical advances like there are now. He said the only way to get to that small intestine would be to do a very risky colonoscopy where they go into the small intestine, but there was really a chance to puncture it. And that would leave me really in a worse situation than what I was already in. The idea was to give me experimental medicine, and if the medicine worked, then he knew that the diagnosis would hold. The diagnosis being bile salt malabsorption. Idiopathic because they didn't know why. Your body puts out bile salts. The bile salts go into your small intestine. I'll believe you. I'm not by any means a doctor or in the medical field, so I only know how to explain this the way it was explained to me. Bile salts go out and collect all the nutrients from your food. And then as they pass through your intestines, they're supposed to be gathered back by your body so that you can get nutrients from your food. My body was forgetting to collect those bile salts. He gave me the medicine to start taking which was a powder I mixed and I drank with my food to see if it would work. At this point when I was at UCSF, I'm not only having diarrhea and I'm not only having pain, I now have started to throw up food hours after eating. I would have dinner, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and throw up whole rice. I understand now what dysmotility is, but I didn't then. So I started on the experimental medicine and it worked. I finally could eat my rice and bread without having pain. And I remember trying to eat chicken and it was like amazing. I could eat again. And I started to feel better as well. So UCSF, we had a follow-up and the doctor advised that we could certainly know it was probably idiopathic bile salt malabsorption and explained to us that the part of the intestine that died is usually the part of the intestine that is removed when people have surgery. I never had surgery, mine just died. And he explained to us that my immune system probably attacked that part of my intestine and that is why it quit working. I didn't know what autoimmune disease was back then, but now sitting here 26 years later, I know that that was probably my first autoimmune disease. And it wasn't until years ago when my gastroenterologist here in Southern California asked for my UCSF records to just look at what had happened before, that I saw something in there that I had never seen before. Once the medicine started working, I thought my story had come to an end. I was gaining weight, I started to thrive. The picture I showed you before of sitting there with the Christmas stocking was like a couple months after my diagnosis. I was already on medicine, still very emaciated in that picture. I was starting to get my life back, which is why I was really excited about the candy. But when my doctor here in Southern California ordered that report that I had never seen because it never crossed my mind to follow up and get it, it said that I probably needed a workup from a rheumatologist because my blood was showing a elevated ANA and inflammatory markers. And he wrote in that report that he thought I needed to be tested for rheumatological issues. So was that the start of my story? Maybe. I lived for nearly 10 months starving to death, not getting much help from the medical world. I will always be thankful for that primary care doctor that believed me and really put his heart into trying to help me. But yeah, I was starving to death and I probably shouldn't be here. It's a lot of prayer. That's the reason I'm sitting here. Moral of the story is that no matter how grim things look right now, your story might not be written the way that you think it's written. I would have never believed that I'd be sitting here 26 years later. Went to a 4-year college out of state, was engaged out of the country. I got to travel outside of the country, move out of my parents' house. I learned how to care for myself. I got married. A story I wasn't promised, but that's the way the story was written. Now I get to tell my story to you all because I know what it feels like to be laying there and know that you're not getting medical help. I know what it feels like to lay there and think that you're dying. I know what it feels like to be laying there and know you're dying. I know what it feels like to have people not believe you, to not understand what's going on. I know what it feels like to not see tomorrow or see a future. But I do know that our story doesn't end up always the way we think it will. And I'm glad that I can share my story with you all, and I'm glad that I'm here. And I know it's a little unbelievable to see me sitting here with a lot of weight gain from prednisone now, but don't give up because your story is not over. So that is my story of how my small intestine died and I nearly starved to death. And it's my miracle to share with you all. Right, so here's all the YouTube stuff. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to leave a comment, please leave me a comment down below. I love to hear from you all. And let me know, do you all have malabsorption too? If you haven't yet subscribed and you'd like to come along on my adventure, I'd love to have you. The more friends, the more better. So please hit the subscribe button. And until my next adventure, go have yours.